Hmm. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. So I'd like to welcome everyone this evening for our last Thursday night session of the year. And I'm glad to see people came out, especially considering how cold it is right now. So in the uh, in the suttas, there's this very famous simile. I know a few of you have heard me talk about this before, but there's this very famous simile called the simile of the saw, and it's about loving kindness. And in the beginning, it tells the story of this lady, and she's a wealthy lady. She's upper class. She has a big house, and she has a servant girl at her house. And this lady, she's known for her loving kindness. Like everyone knows her. She's very patient. She's got lots of loving kindness. And this is just the reputation she has around. And one day the servant girl is thinking, she's like, well, I think that, everyone thinks that the lady of the house has so much loving kindness, but that's because I do everything here and I'm really diligent and I don't do anything wrong. So let's test this. So the next day, because normally the servant girl wakes up really early before dawn and gets all her work done early. So then the next day, she sleeps in a little bit, and then she, wakes up late. And then the lady of the house is like, "Oh, you slept in?" And she's like, "Yeah, I did." Yep. And just goes about her day. And then over the next few days, she keeps doing this. She keeps sleeping in a little later and a little later and a little later, just really trying to test the lady of the house. And then uh, every day, the lady keeps getting more and more angry and starts getting rude to her and then yelling at her and cursing at her. And then finally, one day, she hits her with a pot and makes the servant girl's head bleed. And the servant girl goes running outside and starts yelling, "Everybody come look. You think the lady of the house has so much loving kindness? This is how much loving kindness she has. She hit me in the head." And so um, this story really illustrates how it's very easy for us to have loving kindness, to have metta when it's never being challenged. So it's when we don't have anything challenging us, when everything's going good, it's very easy to have loving kindness. And it's the same. So sometimes we find that when we're just sitting and meditating, it's very easy for us to have loving kindness. But then we go about our days and we may feel it's gone. We may feel it's not there. So one of the things is we have to learn how to um, make this practice of loving kindness, this practice of metta, a holistic practice, a whole life practice, and learn how we can start bringing loving kindness into our daily life and be practicing it in our daily life. So, one of the things we can start off by doing is this idea of in the Gosinga Sutta. So when the Buddha went to meet these monks who were getting along really well, he had first gone to this monastery where the monks were quarreling. It was the monastery in Kosambi, and they were quarreling and fighting and over just a tiny issue. And he went to try to fix the issue, and they basically told him to take off. They were like, "No, no, you're enlightened. You just go do your thing. We'll deal with this." And so he went to the Gosinga Park, and there was these three monks who were getting along really well there. And he asked them, "So what are you guys doing to get along so well?" And they said, "I view that they view each other with kindly eyes or eyes of loving kindness, both in the open and in private. They speak words of loving kindness to each other, both out in the open and in private. and they do actions of loving kindness towards each other in the open and both in private. And then the final one was, they think, I'll give up what I want to do right now to do what everyone else is doing right now. So really, these first three are really important. Is that, if we want to really develop loving kindness in our minds and really start doing this shift in our minds and our personalities and really bringing this up, it's important for us to not only just sit meditate on loving kindness, but in our day with our thoughts, have thoughts of loving kindness. Because if we're having thoughts of negativity, that's just going to bring us down. It's kind of the idea we have some loving kindness and then we have some negativity. So we want to try to bring up these thoughts of loving kindness when we deal with other people, in both in public and in private. So when we're dealing with other people in the world, but also when we go back home, not to just think, oh, that person, so and so is like this, to try to cut that off and just bring up thoughts of loving kindness, nice thoughts about them. And again, this doesn't mean we can't see their faults. Doesn't mean we have to, uh, but we not to get that negativity, that criticism, that harshness we can have with our thoughts. And again, the same with our speech. When we speak to people in the world and deal with people, we have speech of loving kindness towards them. We have a soft speech, kind speech, done at the appropriate time. And also, again, the same is in private. So, you really find that in life when you say you're having difficulties with someone, and you're getting kind of irritated at them, and then you go and you find someone and you just start complaining about them, and just criticize them. You notice how much more real those negative emotions feel, how much it kind of, it cements it, it grows it. And you when you're watching really carefully, you can almost see how you are now more angry at them. And so it just reinforces it and builds it. And then we want to do the same with our actions, doing actions of loving kindness in public to other people, and then also in private as well. And so, when we deal with people, ways to do this, and what I find really helpful is again this thinking of, what if it was me in that situation. So if someone's says something and they're kind of getting on your nerves, or something like this, I always think, well, what if that was me in that situation? Maybe they're not intending to do this. Maybe and how would I feel if I was in this situation? I'm not intending to bother someone, but then they just respond really harshly to me. How would I feel about that? And you can always bring up these the loving kindness meditation, or some of these verses. May they be happy, may they be peaceful, may they be well. Also, to have a lot of patience with other people, because it's very easy for us to not really realize where people are coming from. So if someone does start, say they're grumpy towards us, or maybe snappy with us, we respond with anger, or we respond with aversion, or we get really hurt, but we don't necessarily know where they're coming from. So it could be a lot of times when people do have a switch in mood, could be something happened. Maybe there's been a tragedy in the family. Maybe they've just lost their job. Maybe they're sick. And so again, when someone responds like this, we really want to respond to them with loving kindness, because we don't know where they're coming from. But in this sutta, the simile of the saw, it goes on and it actually gets into the simile of the saw. So the Buddha was saying, um, even if two strong men were to cut you apart limb from limb with a two-handled saw, which of course was like the chainsaw of the time. So nowadays it'd be like if someone was to cut you apart with a chainsaw limb from limb. Even then, you shouldn't have thoughts of anger or aversion towards them. You should have thoughts of loving kindness towards them. So the Buddha is really emphasizing how important it is not to let the mind get into this negativity, this aversion, and to really keep a bright mind of loving kindness. So it's even if someone's doing something really terrible towards you, it's not justified to be angry at them. A lot of times in life we have this idea of justified anger. That person did something wrong, so it's okay to be angry at them. And um, and the Buddha was saying, actually, it's not, because having this heart mind of loving kindness, this is benefiting us. When we have anger, when we have aversion arising in our mind, we're the first person which gets harmed by it. And so we're having loving kindness towards these people, not because we think it's, oh, okay, it's great that they're doing this to us, but we don't want to get into that negativity. We don't want to get drawn down by that. But another thing I think is really important with this simile of the saw, if say two people are cutting you apart limb from limb with a two-handled saw, you don't have to let people do that. So having loving kindness doesn't mean you're a doormat and that you let people walk all over you, and so you don't. Uh, so it's not this kind of like passive, just have to accept everything, and it doesn't mean that we just can only be like a people pleaser, only say things that we think the other person's going to like, or that worried of not saying anything which uh might stir the boat or something. So we want to and especially if it's with someone we care about, if we have loving kindness towards them, we there's certain circumstances where we do want to say something. So the example is like when you're a parent and raising children, you have to, sometimes you have to discipline them, not because it's out of anger, but because it's for their own good. So to make sure they don't stick their finger in the electrical socket, or don't touch the hot stove, so sometimes you almost have to come and approach it and speak in a very strong way to really make sure they understand. So for monks, we actually, a big part of our lifestyle is, especially in the beginning when we're training, is this idea of mutual admonishment. So it sounds worse than it is, but but we really are encouraged to point out to the other monks, and other monks point out to us when we've done something wrong, because a lot of times we just don't realize it. We all have our blind spots in life, and it's interesting because in the monks' rules, we have these kind of criterias that we're supposed to meet when we're uh, pointing something out, admonishing another monk. Is we One of them is we have to have a mind of loving kindness when we do it. So I think that really shows a couple things there. One, that loving kindness, when you have loving kindness, you still do point these things out. You still do tell people what's going to be beneficial for them. Um, but it's also good too, because sometimes um, we can use stuff like that, use rules, the pointing out, as kind of a weapon, and try to kind of almost deceive ourselves, be like, oh, I'm actually doing this for his good. And it's like, but no, I'm not. I'm doing it because I want to get at him. I don't like him, or he did something to me. So we just really making sure to establish in our mind that we do have that mind of loving kindness when we do say something. So when we when we do this and we really start developing this uh, loving kindness towards other people, and we do start taking this practice of loving kindness to the next level of being a more uh, holistic thing, our whole life, or a practice we do not just on the meditation cushion, but throughout our day, with the way we speak, the way we think, the way we act, we're going to find the results come much quicker. So instead of just practicing for the half hour that we're sitting, we're actually practicing all day long. And we're doing these little acts that are going to start changing our mind. So sometimes you see people come to the practice and they have this view, okay, I'm going to start with an internal change, and then it's going to manifest externally. And that does work. But a lot of the practice, and you see, especially with monks, the way we have to do it is a lot of times we do external practices to change ourselves internally as well. So we do both internal practice and external practice, and they're both going to feed into each other and really encourage each other and really start to build this. And but when we are practicing loving kindness and we are trying to really develop it, it's always good to remember to have loving kindness for ourselves as well. So sometimes we really want to, we really come out with a lot of, loving kindness or compassion for other people. And sometimes we forget about ourselves and we forget to take care of ourselves. And it's one of the quotes I know I use a lot, but I really enjoy this quote from Mechi Gao, who was this very famous nun in Thailand. I think she died in the 80s or 90s, and she was in the forest tradition. She's pretty much universally accepted to be enlightened. And she used to have this saying, "You can't grow enough grass to thatch all the roofs in the village." So obviously, she's from a different era than we are now. but the thing of this was you can't you have to know how to help people and work within your means. So, we always have to, at the end of the day, make sure to have loving kindness for ourselves, take care of ourselves as well. And then we can really start taking care of other people too. And really start practicing loving kindness to them, really start working on having patience for other people as well too. If we can, if we can build this patience, in Pali it's called kanti, or in Thai it's like oton. So it's this idea of kind of this like patient endurance. And the Buddha said in the Awada Patimokkha, patience is the supreme incinerator of mental defilements. So he spoke he spoke really really highly of it. So that just this and you really notice that when you start having patience with other people, um uh these stuff like the anger, the aversion and stuff, it's going to get less. It's going to start, that patience is going to start burning it up. And so I would like to offer that to everyone as a reflection for this evening.